We are just over the midpoint to 2030 and the UN Sustainable Development Goals. In your recent role now as Associate Administrator, which of the 17 do you see as UNDP's priorities or that need more urgent attention?
So for UNDP, our focus is really on issues that are important, for individuals and for the country to achieve a level of development that secures the well-being of current generation, but also provides possibilities for the well-being of future generations. The SDG agenda, the Global 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, is a universal agenda. And it depends on the quality of governance, poverty reduction, gender equality, environmental security for future generations, health, environment for the current generation, and so forth, climate change. All depends on how effective governance is.
I want to ask you about some stark numbers from UNDP. 1.2 billion people live in conflict-affected areas. 100 million plus have been forcibly displaced. And in 2022, 300 million experienced acute hunger. So you add to that a struggling global economy, the hottest year on record in 2023. What more needs to happen to overcome these challenges? Do you have an optimistic viewpoint?
So I think Agenda 2030 remains our best hope. In 2023, September, we had the SDG Summit, right, which showed that progress against the 2030 agenda targets are really lagging behind. But the summit also affirmed the international community's commitment to double down on their efforts to catch up. Right? So here, the challenge for developing countries is let's say, technology. Right? In the time of innovation and very fast development, digital technology and so forth, right? So developing countries are asking to have the right technology, right, for their development. Secondly, they're asking for financing, right, so that they have the fiscal space, to support their development aspirations. And thirdly, they're asking for capacity, right. So technology, financing, capacity, I think is what we need to do more to provide so that the developing countries are enabled to achieve the goals that are set out in the 2030 agenda.
China has already achieved 2 of the Sustainable Development Goals, no poverty and quality education. What are some of the things that other countries can take from that and learn?
China has achieved a lot over the last 40 years. We know that China has reduced poverty, extreme poverty, by lifting 770 million people out of poverty, for example, as you mentioned. I think the key lessons learned, in my view, from the Chinese experience is that it is a process of policy innovation, I would say, because the Chinese experience, I would say, has no precedent, right? Because China is big, right, and its starting point is relatively low, and there were no ready-made, experience that China can copy from, right? So I think China, went through more than 40 years of reform lessons. So I think these are would be the key lessons. So have a very clear goal, but that has national consensus, right? And then always, adjust the approach as needed, but not, forget about the strategic objective.
China also has its Belt and Road and Global Development Initiative, partnering with other countries to help them build and grow. What kind of impact has that had on its SDG goals as well?
Chinese, development, has been sort of symbolized, let's say, by several indicators. I would say one is the increase of the size of the economy, certainly, right? The other is the increase in the standard of living of the Chinese population, and also the building up of the different systems that are necessary for socio-economic development. But the other indicator I would say is, in my view, the desire of the Chinese government also to contribute, right, to the international development agenda. Right? And China has been a long provider of South-South cooperation, along with many other developing countries. Right? And so I think so the Belt and Road Initiative, which I consider as an investment initiative, right, in the areas of infrastructure in particular, but also a global development initiative, which tries to align its objectives with the 2030 agenda and the SDG objectives. So I think for all this initiative, the Secretary General of the United Nations, right, certainly has expressed his welcome and support.